Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to episode 3 of Centaurworld. So the first 2 episodes of this have been very good. It is a very strong start, and I really like the vast tonal differences that this can have. I've been listening to the music from the first 2 episodes again, and going from the Centaurworld song in episode 1 to the Tornado song in episode 2, the tonal whiplash that gives you is insane. Because the Centaurworld song, you know, where the herd is singing to Horse and everything about Centaurworld, is very upbeat and poppy and just talking about the joys and everything of Centaurworld. The Tornado song, meanwhile, it's like you hear Horse singing about like never being afraid of war, and you hear the tornado. Like when I first watched episode 2, it's like I did not know what the tornado was saying, but then it's like you look back and you pay attention to everything. It's like, oh, you have become one of our thousands of souls, and it's like, Jesus. We're talking about when the one centaur, God, Glendale, I think her name is, but when she is like sucked up into the tornado, that's what it sings there. It's like, Jesus fuck. But I love that. Like not even just not even exaggerating. I really love when shows can do that, when they can have that massive difference in tone and make it feel believable and natural. And you know the reason why it feels believable and natural here? A single line. A single line in the Centaurworld song, well, okay, I guess a verse in a way. It's kind of a single line. But it's exactly what, it tells you everything you need to know and sets up for the entire future of this series by expressly telling you things are not all what they seem. And once again, it's with Glendale. Again, I think that's her name. But she starts singing in the Centaurworld song at one point in episode 1, and she's like, sure, there was a war where we were being invaded by these enemies and everything. I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but it's and then the others just shush her up and say, we don't talk about that, and you see this kind of like shocked and almost terrified expression on Horse, and it's like, oh, that's what we're going for. Because it's like, that tells you everything you need to know. This is seemingly this happy, goofy, cartoonish world, but there's a darker side that's being hidden beneath the surface, something that they're actively repressing. So when you see the tornado scene, even though like if you watch it back to back after the Centaurworld song, generally there is that tonal whiplash in how it's presented, it makes sense. It doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. It doesn't feel like it's just this random tone change for the sake of shock value or anything. It feels natural to the world because there was a single line of setup in episode 1 that basically told us this is what you can expect from the series. And I really love that. And a lot of great shows have done this. Steven Universe did this extremely well, actually, prior to its downfall. Star Versus did this actually really well, too. Again, prior to that kind of going downhill. Owl House has done this. Amphibia has done this. And there's plenty others you can even name as well. Gravity Falls even. Just having like 2 parts of it that are so diametrically opposed in tone, yet still feel natural in the execution of such. And I like that. I really think that's a valuable thing for a lot of shows to do. Because having a show that's like just all happy-go-lucky and everything, it's not going to allow the kid audience, the main demographic, to really understand how things can be. And I know it's like, oh, it's a cartoon, it's supposed to be an escape and everything. It's like, to a degree, yes. But cartoons and just media in general should also allow children to be prepared for real life situations. I'm not saying that all media has to be like super hyper realistic and everything. Fantasy is still a really great way of getting across important messages. I'm just saying that there has to be a balance. Kids are going to face terrible things in the world, and if they're not accustomed to the possibility of that, it's going to affect them even worse. Believe me, there's a lot of cases where I wish there was more of this back in the old days. Instead, a lot of the cartoons when I was growing up were more episodic and comedic, with very few of them having anything notable in terms of maturity or darkness. Some of them did. Like Powerpuff Girls had a few episodes that actually got really fucking dark. Abracadabra and the one, I can't remember what the other one's called, but where they travel forward in time and the world's been taken over by him. Those two episodes are extremely dark. Samurai Jack did this as well. But a lot of the shows back then, it's like, you watch Cow and Chicken, it's like, yeah, there's going to be adult jokes in that, but nothing like that is like mature, dark, or would help prepare kids in any notable way. But since basically the 2010s and stuff, we've had stuff like MLP and Adventure Time and shows like that integrate that in, so that not only can people of all ages be entertained, but that the younger demographics do get a level of preparedness for the world and how things are not always so great. Honestly, I think this is kind of important. And Centaurworld is definitely leaning a lot more heavily into it based on those first two episodes. But it's also a Netflix series. And to be fair, streaming shows are often allowed to go a little further beyond than network TV shows. So it's like, you've even seen that in stuff like She-Ra, where it's like, this kind of, some of the stuff they tackle in that is pretty damn fucking heavy. And even Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts did it as well. But a lot of these shows, again, if these shows were on network television, they would not have been able to go to the lengths that they did for representation and for the depths and darkness and heaviness of certain situations. It was because they were on streaming, and streaming allows for a lot more creative freedom to be expressed. And so far, there is a shit ton of creative freedom in Centaurworld. Like, honestly, I would say that is one of the biggest positives about this series. It is, like, it is creative as fuck. Let's just put it that way. That is a really genuinely good way to word it. It is creative as fuck. And it has more going for it, too. The story is genuinely good. I'm definitely invested. And the characters are likable and enjoyable to watch. There's really good humor, good animation. The music is needlessly epic for this series. Like, with what the series is otherwise, it's like you wouldn't really necessarily think about the music being this epic. And also, Megan McCarthy works on this. I don't know if I mentioned that in the first two episodes, but I did. Well, in the second episode, I found that out after I had originally watched the first one. And Megan McCarthy worked on MLP, and is working on Generation 5 of MLP. I actually saw, I think it was a tweet, where she even joked about how she's worked on 2 animated projects where Kimiko Glenn voiced a talking, singing horse, being My Little Pony: A New Generation, and this. So it's kind of funny in that regard. But even again, it's like I've known Megan McCarthy's work in MLP, and so it's like I know even in Gen 4, and so I know that she's gonna handle this well. And again, this is gonna have a lot more creative freedom than MLP, because MLP, at least for Gen 4, was on network TV, and for Gen 5 it's honestly going to be heavily regulated by Hasbro, because Hasbro has a very certain kind of idea for how MLP should be. Honestly, I don't think they were entirely on board with how the Brony fandom ended up influencing a lot of G4. I think they still feel that MLP should be for little girls only. But enough about that. Let's just talk about where this has gone. So last time, Horse had to learn that she has to trust in others and work with them, and not just try to do everything on her own. It's a give and take situation, and she needed to figure that out, and she has. She helped save Glendale. She made some mistakes, some heavy mistakes, but things have come around, and hopefully that's going to help. But yeah, I'm definitely very excited to see where this further goes. I'm definitely excited to see more of the creativity and goofiness. And I'm definitely interested to see when the villain eventually does come into play, because again, I'm very interested in that, in the darker aspects of this show. And I have already seen what the villain looks like, but again, as I've said before, I don't actually know what they are like as a character. I just know what they look like. So, and I know their name as well. But I'm not going to get into that right now. But yeah, it's like I'm definitely wondering, when are they going to show up? Like, how long is the wait for that going to be? Either way, I'm still invested. I'm still really into this. I talked about it in a previous video. I think it was episode 2. It might have been in the afterthoughts of episode 1, but this is definitely the most successful pull series we've had so far, and hopefully we get more stuff like this and less like Cuphead show or whatnot. And hopefully when we do get back to Tiger and Bunny again, it starts to turn me around on that, because I really don't want to end up dropping that for good. I really want to give it as many chances as possible. Partially because you guys chose it, but also because I want to like reacting to it. Like, I like the show, but I want to enjoy reacting to it as well, because that seems to be the big issue. But we'll see. We'll see. Either way, we're just going to get into this and hope for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction. And after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, Leia Salonga, I looked it up, the voice of the woman, the human woman. She is, I guess I would say, most known for being the singing voice of both Princess Jasmine in Disney's Aladdin and Mulan in Disney's Mulan. that's definitely where I know her from, being the singing voice for both of those classic Disney characters. Um, so that's fun. But yeah, as I was saying prior, as I was saying at the end of the reaction, Renee Elise Goldsberry is the actress who portrayed um, Angelica Schuyler in Hamilton. Uh, she has some amazing songs in that too. So I knew her singing sounded really great. I didn't quite put it together. I didn't think she sounded like super familiar or anything. I just thought she sounded really good, and it's like that would be why. Um, but this episode kind of has a bit of an A plot and a B plot, and then also builds up a lot for the future. Um, so they find the first shaman, as we find out, Water Baby, who is I think she's a hippo, a hippotaur. Um, but yeah, and they accidentally destroy her houseboat. So while everyone else is tasked to fix it, although Horse, still thinking she saw a rider, uh, ignores that for a bit. Wamawink goes with Water Baby to collect stuff that they need. So on the way, we find out more about Wamawink having been a previous applicant, or whatever you want to call it, to be a shaman. That she had been training under Water Baby, but abandoned her studies because she found it too difficult, which is really interesting. Um, and it kind of feeds into what we've already seen with Wamawink, even in the first episode, with the barrier that she had put around them to protect them from the wider Centaur world. It's genuinely fascinating in that regard. Uh, so Water Baby is trying to get her to kind of embrace her innate magical ability and stop making excuses. Uh, so while trying to find like the perfect rutabaga, she's trying to get Wamawink to do this, and Wamawink at first tries to avoid it by all means necessary, even hiding herself in a bubble once again, until eventually she's kind of lured into it and proves that she can do it. Um, so yeah, it's some good character development for Wamawink. It actually gives her quite a bit in this episode. Meanwhile, the rest of the herd is trying to fix the houseboat and failing spectacularly at it. They just have no idea what the fuck they're doing. Horse eventually realizes that, yeah, she was always chasing Jebri this entire time, whose existence is pain, and that it was never Ryder. So she goes back to the others and finds them just fucking everything up and eventually getting absolutely covered in glue and becoming a Katamari. Um, and then she tells them what glue is made out of, and they have an existential crisis over it. Um, but the boat is wrecked again, and Horse has a breakdown, starts crying, and sings a song about crying, but not wanting to admit that she's crying. And they eventually do all work together to try and fix it, to try and make it work as best as possible. Doesn't quite work. But in the end, they kind of grow closer through the experience. And Horse is learning to open up a lot more, learning to connect with others a lot more. And then we get the big cliffhanger at the end. Not really a cliffhanger, but big twist at the end. There's a human in Centaurworld. It's not Ryder, though. And Horse was actually following her. That it wasn't just Jebri the entire time. This mysterious woman is voiced by Lea Salonga. And we don't know her deal, but it seemed like Water Baby was implying that she had a piece of the key. And from what Leia Salonga's character, the woman, was saying, um, whatever is going on with the keys and opening the portal between the worlds is actually dangerous and is a problem. I don't know if this necessarily is trying to paint Water Baby as bad, or if it's just trying to say like there are dangers to this that are not being taken into account. But either way, it definitely adds into the depth of this series extremely well, and just heightens the intrigue more than ever. I'm fully invested in this for sure. And I can't wait to see where it goes, but yeah, it's like, there's a lot to love here for sure. The music in this one wasn't as good as the first two episodes, I'll admit. It wasn't bad by any means. It just wasn't as good. But I'm still invested to see how it goes from there. And just because it wasn't as good here doesn't mean it won't be as good continuing forward. These might just not have been the best songs for the series. That's very possible. Again, they weren't bad by any means. They were still very good. They just weren't as good as the ones in the first two episodes. But those were on an entirely different level that I was not expecting, so to be fair. Yeah, and everything else was as good as always. The art and animation, the just regular score, the voice acting, all of it was just as good as ever. So, yeah. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Centaurworld, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.